Hello there everyone, I'm Kara, the Mental Traveler, and welcome to another movie review. In this video I'll be talking about Disney's The Sword in the Stone. And the reason why I'm doing this is because The Sword in the Stone is the first novel in the tetralogy, The Once and Future King by T.H. White, my third favorite book ever, after Gone with the Wind and The Thornbirds. I've already done a book review of this novel, as well as a movie review for the other three books that make up The Once and Future King, which would be The Queen of Air and Darkness, The Ill-Made Knight, and The Candle in the Wind. You can find links to all of these reviews in the description box below, but Disney decided only to make an adaptation of the first book, The Sword in the Stone, because it's the novel that's more childish in a way, since it's based on King Arthur's early days when he was a kid. The Sword in the Stone came out in 1963, and it's quite short. It's not even an hour and a half long. Regardless, you should beware because this is going to be a video with spoilers. In the medieval England of the 12th century, there is this castle owned by Sir Ector. He has a grown-up son named Kay and is fostering a young boy called Arthur, although everybody refers to him as Ward. One day Arthur encounters Merlin, a magician, in the woods, and after they meet, Merlin decides to go back to the castle with Arthur so that he can become his tutor. And Merlin is a very cool magician. Not only does he have this very odd personality and interesting powers, but he can also travel through time. Therefore, he knows what's going to happen to Arthur when he grows up. As to Arthur, he's portrayed as a very young, naive, clueless little boy, but he's very likable. He's kind to everybody and content with his lot in life, which is to grow up to be his eldest foster brother's squire, because Kay wants to become a knight. But once Merlin arrives and becomes Arthur's tutor, the ward's ordinary life suddenly becomes extraordinary because Merlin's teachings include turning Arthur into animals. In one of these lessons, Arthur becomes a fish in the castle's moat, and he also turns into a squirrel and into a bird, and Arthur and Merlin go on these adventures where they face dangers like hungry wolves, a witch, a dragon, and love-struck female animals. But even though Arthur is having the time of his life, all good things must come to an end. So one day Merlin leaves Arthur, and the ward has to accompany Kay and his foster father, Sir Ector, to London because there's going to be this very big jousting tournament, and since the ward is Kay's squire, he has to take care of all of Kay's things. But just before the tournament, Kay's sword is forgotten back at the inn where they're all staying in London town. So Arthur goes running back to the inn for the sword, only to find that it's locked up, and therefore he decides to run across London and see where he can find a sword for Kay. And in this lonely churchyard, he encounters a sword stuck in an anvil. He takes it out effortlessly and runs back to Kay to give it to him, unaware that this sword is very special. At the beginning of the movie, we are told that King Uther Pendragon, the ruler of Great Britain, has died, leaving no heirs. But mysteriously and magically, this sword has appeared stuck in an anvil in London that states in gold letters that whoever pulls the sword out of that anvil will become king of all England. Everyone in the land has tried this. They've failed to take the sword out of the stone until Arthur comes along. And once he has the sword, he's quickly crowned the new king. And Arthur is very flustered by this, but when Merlin comes back, he assures Arthur that he's going to be a very great king and will even have this idea of creating a round table, leaving the viewer with the impression that both of them will live happily ever after, helping each other out till the end of time. The book has way more characters and situations and themes than the film, but as far as adaptations go, Disney's The Sword in the Stone is pretty good. But of course, this is a children's movie, so it had to be even more lighthearted than T.H. White's novel. And the only big difference that I can think of right now regarding characters is Kay, Arthur's foster brother. In the movie, he's very dislikable and he's way older than Arthur. But in the book, they're both about the same age, and I liked him more in the novel. Another difference are the lessons that Merlin gives Arthur when he turns the boy into different animals, because in the book there are way more of these lessons than in the movie. And in the book, it is never specified that Arthur becomes a squirrel. I want to pause a minute and state that in the book, these lessons serve to show Arthur different sides of power, so that when he becomes king, when he's grown up, he will have all of these different point of views and backgrounds as to what being a monarch and a ruler and titles. The animals teach him about philosophy and military training and how might isn't right, which would lead to Arthur eventually deciding that might should be used for right. But in the film, they take away the core of these lessons and turn them into comic relief. For example, the female squirrels falling in love for a flustered Arthur and a horrified Merlin. And again, it's a kids movie, so I understand why they may have done this, but one thing that they could have kept that I enjoyed in the book a lot was at the moment when Arthur is about to take the sword out of the anvil. He's having a little bit of a struggle with it, but then all of the animals that he met when he was transformed into their species come back to Arthur and start encouraging him to take out the sword as they remind him of all the lessons that they taught him long ago. But in the movie, Arthur just puts his hand on the sword and effortlessly takes it out, so that could have been changed in the animated movie. Another difference is that the whole story with Madame Mim and the dragon doesn't happen in the book. There's something similar that goes on in the novel, but it's not what we see in the film. And the movie also takes out Robin Hood, who does appear in the book, and I guess that they did this because they knew one day they would have a movie focusing on Robin Hood and they didn't want to introduce him in The Sword in the Stone. But I enjoyed T.H. White's portrayal of Robin Hood in The Once and Future King. I believe that the representations of Arthur and Merlin and their dynamic was spot on, although it's less complex than in the book. And finally, there are some critics who thought that this movie had too much humor in it and the narrative was very thin, and I agree with this. When you look at The Sword in the Stone as separately, it's a good Disney film. But when you compare it to the world that T.H. White created in The Once and Future King, then the film could almost come out losing as a pale imitation of it. So I definitely prefer the novel and I encourage you all to read it, but I'm very grateful to Disney for making The Sword in the Stone because this particular take of the Arthurian legend has become sort of the official version to many, and that's because Disney made it, thus making it very popular around the world. In any case, that's all I have to say about The Sword in the Stone today. Let me know what you thought about my movie review of this Disney film, but also I want to know if this was one of your favorite Disney films growing up, or maybe you've read the novel that this story is based on. And I gather that at the rate live action versions of Disney animated movies are being made, we may get a new film for The Sword in the Stone with real people in it. So go ahead and speculate who you would like to see as Arthur and Merlin and Madame Mim in the comments. And also please remember to check out my review of the book that inspired this animated film, as well as my other review for the movie adaptation that is set when Arthur is a grown man, and it has to do with the Round Table and with Lancelot and Guinevere, and it's called Camelot. Below in the description box you can find links to the IMDb page for The Sword in the Stone, as well as a trailer for the film. I hope you have a wonderful day. Hopefully you'll be back for another review of The Mental Traveler. Goodbye!